Welcome back, citizens, and thank you for watching. We'd like to thank all of our patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for your support. If you enjoy our content, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button to help the channel grow. In today's episode, we'll be visiting the Tiber System and learning about its planets, features of interest, history, and lore. And that episode starts right now. The Tiber System is a tiny single-star system within Vanduul territory. It consists of a main sequence dwarf K-star, 2 planets, an asteroid belt, and 4 jump points within its 1 AU boundaries. The jump points connect the Tiber System to the Oberon system through a medium bidirectional jump point, the Virgil system through a large bidirectional jump point, the Vector system through a large bidirectional jump point, and the Orion system through a large bidirectional jump point. Due to being in a military conflict with the UEE, the system is declared military classified. The Star Traveler's Guide to Tiber would best be summed up with a single word: don't. The site of countless battles between humans and the Vanduul, Tiber is a bleeding world that shows no sign of healing. Tiber was first charted by the UNE long-range explorers associated with Project Farstar in 2474. Home to a standard K-type main sequence star orbited by 2 planets, Tiber didn't bear any exotic new resources or strategic jump lines, so the public were slow to populate the system. Smaller mining consortiums eager for cheaper permits and land rights did trickle in. The system existed mostly as a stopover point for travelers heading out of Orion until the late 27th century, when Vanduul clans began to attack Orion with increasing ferocity and consistency. Tiber became a secondary staging area for military forces, who would fall back to recoup and repair before heading back to this new front. After the Battle of Orion in 2712, the UEE abandoned the system to the Vanduul and reinforced Tiber as their new battlefront, expecting the Vanduul to come rolling in, but they didn't. Vanduul clans held on to Orion and began harvesting the planets for resources. They didn't seem to know or care about the jump point to Tiber. That changed in 2726 when a UEE Navy pilot encountered a lone Vanduul blade in the system. The blade managed to escape through a jump point into a then unknown system. Within the year, a clan began launching raids into the system. War finally arrived in Tiber in 2732 in the form of a prolonged, sustained military engagement that became known as the Siege of Tiber. Lasting 4 long years, the UEE desperately tried to dig in and make a stand against the encroaching Vanduul hordes. The military threw everything they had against the Vanduul, nearly losing the system several times over the years, until the line was finally cracked by the Vanduul in 2736. The defeat was so swift and sudden that the military had not prepared for the loss. While forces were scrambling back to the safe UEE system, they weren't able to effectively mount a defense in Virgil. Those who may have hoped that the Vanduul would once again stop at the jump point like they had done in Orion were sorely mistaken. The Vanduul flooded into Virgil after the Navy, and within a year claimed that system as their own too. It was this prolonged, bloody conflict that bore Tiber its real nickname, Grinder. To this day, the system bears the scars of war. Shattered stations, ships, and debris litter the space and planets. The UEE military has declared the system to be under Vanduul control, but in the ensuing years, no fewer than 19 major initiatives have been made to try and push the Vanduul out of Tiber. Massive fleet actions, attempts at global landings to hold Tiber II itself, and even a clean slate operation designed to simply eliminate the ability of the system to sustain military occupation have all fallen flat. Millions have died in these attempts, and the ever-expanding fields of wreckage are now legendary. Countless civilians seeing the deadly battlefield debris as a potential for profit, have made the same leap with similar fatal results. Today, the battle continues unabated. In addition to regular reconnaissance sorties and occasional reconnaissance in-force missions, the system is frequented by thousands of private spacecraft commanders each year. Whether they are attempting to prove themselves by engaging a scythe in fighter combat or trying to profit from the system's resources, their fate is nearly always the same, left as grist for the grinder. Tiber I is a small, dense planet close to Tiber's sun. The planet's CO2 heavy atmosphere is breathable, but the extreme heat from the nearby sun would make life here an unpleasant proposition, even without the constant combat. Tiber I's orbit is nestled just inside an extraordinary heavy asteroid belt, which makes exploration even more difficult. UEE deep space photography stations have recorded an unusual movement of weather systems on the surface of Tiber I, which meteorologists believe would allow for periods of improved conditions once every 4 years. An arid desert world coated in nearly blood-red copper dust, Tomb represents more than anything else the unquenching maw of the Vanduul war machine. Much of the planet's surface is coated with the wreckage of spacecraft and other former war machines, the remains of countless repelled UEE attacks, private vessels looking for profit from the unusual system, and destroyed Vanduul technology layer the planet. Tomb is not a permanent graveyard. However, the wreckage that accumulates there is in turn devoured by the massive Vanduul harvesters. These mechanical beasts ingest all forms of matter and convert them for use by the Vanduul war machine. The harvesters found on Tiber have an even more terrifying dual purpose. They seem to have been the source for the newer harvesters that have been dropped into human colonies during raids. Everything from starship wrecks to the bones of fallen soldiers ultimately feed the very enemy they were attempting to defeat. The world is also home to countless Vanduul war camps, Spartan temporary base camps used by the Vanduul clans constantly on the move through the system. While humans would not find Tomb's environment particularly welcoming, the Vanduul seem to thrive in the climate, and they pay little mind to the landscape of destroyed spacecraft around them. Attempting to visit one of these camps would be suicide for a human being, but declassified records from attempted marine landings have provided a great deal of knowledge about their unusual layout. While Tomb may seem an attractive target to hopeful salvage teams, be well warned that no one is known to have successfully landed on the planet to recover any of the priceless military hardware left there. Travelers are warned to avoid any such attempt. The UEE has never established a viable landing zone on Tomb, and unless you are part of an unlucky Marine detachment, you have little hope of even reaching the surface. Do not, under any circumstance, transit to the Tiber System. Vanduul forces have established a permanent occupation there. Well, that's the Tiber System. Thanks for watching. More systems will be coming soon. See you in the verse, and happy mining!